Right, good afternoon members and welcome to the November meeting of the Education and Learning Committee. We seem to have some feedback. Okay. Yeah, I think that's better. Okay, yeah, that's better. Right, good afternoon members and welcome to the November meeting of the Education and Learning Committee. Obviously it's the usual blended method of meeting at the moment. So before we start, can I please remind members that this meeting will be live streamed, recorded and subsequently made available to the public for listening purposes. So I think I need to accept those members who are attending remotely. Tracy.
Thanks, Chair. We've currently got 22 members present. Those present in the chamber are the Chairman, Councillor Brodie, Councillor McKee, Councillor Scobie, Councillor Stitt and Councillor Thompson. And just to update members, since the papers were published, we've had an update to the membership for this committee, and that is that Councillor Scobie has replaced Councillor Sloan, and the two vacancies have been filled by Councillor Drysdale and Councillor McGregor. I have apologies from Councillor Drysdale, and Kenny Pullen may be late in joining the meeting. Sorry, another apology was Timothy Birrell.
Thanks, Tracy. Do we have any declarations of interest? No indication. And can I just remind members, if they aren't actually speaking, can you mute your microphones? Thank you. So moving on to item 3, minutes of the previous meeting, starts on page 11. Is everybody happy with that? Yep. So I think we agreed on that. And the next item is item 4, update on COVID-19 response and recovery in schools. This is a verbal update from Gillian Brighton, the Director of Skills, Education and Learning. And after Gillian's given us this verbal update to the committee, she'll also send out a written briefing to all elected members, so everybody's up to date. Gillian?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Last week we welcomed pupils and staff back to school, and I hope everyone had a restful and enjoyable October holiday. It's been a testing time for all as we worked through the safe reopening guidance. Our young people in schools and nurseries have continued to be wonderfully resilient, and staff have risen to the challenges of changing the way we work, and I'd like to extend my thanks to parents, carers and our partners across children's services who've worked alongside us and been patient as we have learned to manage learning while doing all we can to keep our communities safe. I know that in school it can be tempting to think that we're going back towards normal, but we know we're not, and we've heard from the First Minister that we need to do all we can to keep schools and early years setting open while it is safe to do so. We will now work to interpret the advice we received on Friday from Government and from Education Scotland, and as always putting children and families at the centre of our planning. In our schools, our approaches, such as following and reinforcing physical distancing advice, scrupulous hand washing and careful respiratory hygiene all play their part to contain the spread of COVID-19. And the importance of these measures will continue to be reinforced with staff-specific guidance on face coverings. We know that in Dumfries and Galloway, we are in Tier 2. This means that for this week, we'll be expecting our staff to wear face coverings when they cannot keep 2 metres from other adults or from children and young people across primary and secondary. Now, there are some adaptations for our youngest children in nursery to primary 2 as before. The national guidance also requires face coverings to be worn by parents and other visitors to the school site. This includes parents at drop-off and pick-up, and we will be updating our schools information to remind parents of how they can help us by sticking to this guidance. We now have further information on the arrangements for national qualifications in 2021. There will be no assessment of National 5 courses this year, and an alternative certification approach is being put in place based on teacher judgment. The SQA has published broad guidance on evidence gathering and estimation. There will be a focus on quality and not quantity of evidence, and subject-specific guidance on the work that learners will need to be complete will be published by the SQA, and we will work to share that information with parents. Higher and advanced higher exams are planned to start on Thursday the 13th of May next year and finish on Friday the 4th of June, so slightly later than normal. Results day will be Tuesday the 12th of August, and we'll keep up to date with SQA as they continue to develop their contingency plan, and that includes key checkpoints for up until the February break to assess public health advice and its impact on the plans for exams. If the number of cases locally increases, we should plan for disruption to learning for individuals and groups of pupils, as our test and protect arrangements require periods of self-isolation. And we know that we're now planning for a much longer recovery phase than we had originally envisaged, and this is tough. I think our young people have been remarkable, and they often teach us as much as we teach them. As we go towards winter with no end in sight, I know our resilience will be tested, but we will keep working together to keep learning going while we protect each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Gillian. Can I throw it open to any questions, members? Dick?
Yeah, I'd just like to echo that. Our staff and the children and our students are doing really a great job coping with the situation. Obviously, cleaning of surfaces is very important to stopping the spread of the virus. How near are we getting to our ideal situation as far as cleaning in schools is going?
All the questions from head teachers are going through the Solutions Centre. I know at the last committee we raised that there were some capacity issues, but we're working with these on a day-to-day basis. It's never easy to manage such a significant programme of work, but as you say, our staff and Alan's team, the facilities team and the Solutions Centre are working hard to support our head teachers, and have not had any specific issues raised as problematic.
Thanks, Gillian. Ros?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you so much, Gillian, for this update. And I just want to personally thank all the staff and children for everything that they're doing in this difficult time, and how adaptable everybody has to be. One of the questions I've got, I'd just like to acknowledge the work of Wendy Jessen, who has sent an email to us today about getting warm clothes for everybody. Absolutely fantastic thing to be doing. And my question is really about how things are going with the ventilation of schools. I know we need to keep windows open and keep the air flowing as much as we can in schools. How is that going? And are we coping with people who can't manage too well with the extra clothing?
Thank you, Chair. And I know that Lauren's also on the call, and he may have some specific information, but I'm happy to take that. In general, it's been quite mild. The weather so far has been quite mild, but we know that won't continue, I'm sure, as we move into the winter. Some of our classrooms, we need to keep the windows open due to the nature of the heating in our schools. Our school estate is quite varied, so we have different models in different schools depending on the types of windows and heating systems that we have. It doesn't have to be windows, it can be doors, and we will be making sure that the temperature in our rooms is as suitable as we possibly can, while making sure that we have adequate ventilation. And as you mentioned, that we're looking to relax school uniform policy to make sure young people can keep warm in classes. But it's always a balancing act to have a good operating temperature, good ventilation, and make sure children are comfortable in a comfortable environment to learn.
And Lauren wants to come in with some of the information. Lauren?
Thanks, Chair. Chair. Just exactly to mirror as Gillian's describing there, the latest guidance that we've had from the Scottish Government that came out on the 30th of October has an update on ventilation within school buildings. I think it has relaxed the position slightly to make it more important to ensure that we're compliant with the level of temperature required in a school to keep it operational. So if a school is dropping below 17 degrees, then at that point you should be closing doors, should be closing windows. It's one of the references that it makes about ventilation is that actually to maintain the temperature, we may consider purging the rooms, i.e. before a class is into the space or after they've left it or at break and lunch times, windows and doors are opened at that point to have an air exchange take place at that point, and then they can be closed again to bring the temperature back up to one that's operational. The benchmark test that's being used against this is actually back to the 1967 Schools Premises Act regulations, so the air exchange level that we're looking for in schools is detailed within that document, and that's the thing that we'll now be measuring across our facilities to ensure that we're compliant with that.
Thanks, Dan. That's very helpful. Willie?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And just maybe to ask Gillian, you refer to test and protect. How are we managing that in terms of testing of the kids in schools? And what measures have we put in there so that we can test and protect, so that we're closer, if there is any outbreaks? And also in terms of the cleaning, and I raised this at I think it was full council, in terms of a suggestion that had come from an eminent person in Stranraer in terms of what we could do with ultralight or whatever it was, and I'm no professing to know much about it, but Susan, I believe, was going to take it away to see where we were with that as a means of killing the virus, is what I was told. Have we done anything to look at that and see if that could be developed?
Thank you, Councillor. In terms of Test and Protect, we've got well-tested partnership working with our public health colleagues who do the testing with our NHS colleagues. So there's no testing in schools, but we certainly have, every time there is an incident, there is either a problem assessment group or an incident management team meeting, and a range of personnel are virtually around the table to determine what we do next. And that means identifying children who've been in close proximity with the index case, and requiring patterns of self-isolation. So we've had small numbers across Dumfries and Galloway, but these IMTs and PAGs meetings have been really successful. The head teachers are invited to those meetings so that they can discuss the nuances of seating plans, lunchtime movements, etc., so that we can absolutely identify when a child has been in school and has either been in close contact or has a member of their family has tested positive and public health determine that there is a risk, then we are able to respond appropriately. In terms of the specific cleaning arrangements, that really sits very much with Alan's team, and to be honest, I don't know where we're at with I remember the case that you referred to with the local scientist who was working on this. I'm not sure if Susan is on the call at the moment.
Susan's just posted. I understand the contact has been made with the individual by our cleaning teams. Is Susan on the contact?
I am, Chair, thank you. Yes, I believe the contact hadn't been made when Councillor Scobie raised it the last time at full council. However, it was due to a staff absence, actually. The person is now back at work, and that contact has been made, and they are in discussion as to how they can take that science forward and build it into our planning. I'm not sure what's being done with it yet, but I do know that they're having those discussions.
Thanks, Susan. It's ultraviolet light, Willie.
I knew a scientist could tell me what it was, Jeff. As I say, I never professed to be that. But, it's been some time. Could we get an update on that and whether it is either being developed or being put forward to the Scottish Government as an alternative way of dealing with it? Could we have an update on that, please?
Jim McComb.
Thanks, Chair. A question for Lauren. Do we make any use of antiviral fogging machines?
Lauren or Susan?
Happy to come in that one, Chair. Absolutely, yes. We have a programme in place around all of our council buildings, inclusive of schools, where there's a process in place that's a minimum of twice a week visit to our facilities to employ that type of machine, where it's not a physical wipe down of a surface. It's a Ghostbusters style backpack that's used by the operatives to ensure the correct level of hygiene is in place.
Thanks, Lauren.
And I don't see anybody else wishing to speak, so... Chuck?
Don't mind. What kind of decision, if a child is tested and has coronavirus, do you send the whole class home or just those in close proximity?
Thank you, yes. It's those that we identify as being in close proximity. It's described to me as being like an aeroplane, whereas if you're sitting in the middle seat, it would be the children who are on either side and those in the row in front and those in the row behind. So in primary and secondary schools, it can be quite different, because in primary, you tend to be in the same class all day, but you do tend to be moving around, whereas in secondary, you move around with your class, but you don't. Once you're sitting in a class in secondary schools, you tend to be sitting. So it does look and feel different depending on the context. Our nursery pupils might have a different response to our secondary schools. So that's why I can understand that some parents might feel, why is that whole class not being sent home because it was in that school? But it's very much determined by what the child was doing and who they were with over the course of the day.
Okay, I don't see anybody else wanting to speak, so thanks very much for the update, Gillian. And as I said at the start, a written update will go out to all members after the meeting. Okay, so if we move on to item 5 on page 17, this is early year learning and childcare implementation of 1140 hours. This paper provides an update on the full implementation of the strategic project to increase funded early learning and childcare from 600 to 1140 hours for eligible 2-year-olds and all 3- and 4-year-olds. Members are asked to agree that, taking account of the outstanding building work, the expansion of early learning childcare to 1140 hours has been successfully completed by August 2020, and note the uptake of additional hours, the uptake of 2-year-old placements, that workforce is in place to deliver the increased hours, and to agree that the completion of the building work related to early learning and childcare will be monitored through the Properties, Building and Schools Asset Class reports, and agree the strategic project is recorded as complete. Members are also asked to note that the flexible framework has reopened for applications from new providers to deliver funded early learning and childcare. And we have Rosie Smith to speak to the report. Rosie, wherever you are, is there anything you want to add to your report?
Thank you, Chair. There's just one update to add to the report. Since the writing of the report, the uptake of 2-year-olds has increased. So we now have 145 2-year-olds that have been enrolled into early learning and childcare, and there's a further 43 eligible who have yet to register, and another 35 that are currently being assessed. So should all of those children that are being assessed be eligible and uptake a place, then we have increased to 57% of the eligible population. So we can see that the 2-year-old uptake for funded hours is increasing all the time, which is very positive.
Thanks, Rosie. Members, any questions? Sorry, Stephen.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it's actually a question on, I think it's 3.9 in the report, although it says 3.7 in the recommendations, but it's to do with the final phase of the expansion programme and the recruitment of additional staff. Obviously, this is a kind of blended across the local authority, the private and voluntary sectors and childminders, for example. When we're talking about the recruitment of staff, obviously that's going to apply across the whole partnership, if you like. So,
because my questions are being shared.
So it was really just to get a bit of clarity in terms of like whether or not the numbers that we've recorded there include the private and voluntary sectors, and if not, why not? And have we got any detail on the additional staff that they're bringing in to help us complete our task.
Rosie?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the question. The data that's reported there in the paper is reflective of the council staff only. So they're the number of additional staff that the council have required to employ for the delivery of early learning and childcare in our own services. We don't hold any information on the numbers of staff that our private and voluntary providers have recruited. That's not something that we have requested of them.
Stephen?
Yeah, thanks. I'm just wondering if that might help us in the future as we go forward, being able to monitor maybe, for example, best value even, and just to get a sense of how the sector is being able to maintain resilience maybe going forward, because obviously there might be different pressures on our partners.
Rosie?
Yes, thank you. We do, each of our services has a named officer within the early years team. So we're in regular contact with our private and voluntary providers and with our childminders. So if there were any issues around any aspects of funded early learning and childcare, then that would be the route at which they would raise them. And we also meet with them we're to meet with them on a termly basis, so that there's a forum for them to raise any concerns. But certainly if it was felt that you would like us to ask the question around staffing particularly, then that's something that we can pick up in our meetings with them.
Thank you, Rosie. Yeah, if we've got the data anyway, I suppose we could incorporate it into the updates. Yeah, Gillian?
Thank you, Chair. And yes, I think the 139 additional staff is just the staff that we employ, but that is, clearly, as Rosie said, there are many other staff across Dumfries and Galloway who are working in this sector, delivering services to our Dumfries and Galloway children. It's an emerging sector, and we're working with our colleagues in employability and as part of the local employability partnership and the colleges to make sure we have a workforce fit for the future. There are not a lot of increasing sectors at the moment in terms of employability, and early learning and childcare is one. So we will make sure that we have as many opportunities for our young people as we can in this sector.
Okay, so I've got Ian Carruthers followed by Willie Scobie. Ian?
Thanks, Chairman. Thanks, Jeff, and thanks to the whole team. Who on earth in March thought for a minute that we'd deliver 1140 this year? It was off the radar, wasn't it? But so it's incredible to see it actually here and being delivered. I suppose the only point I would like to pick up on, Chairman, if possible, and it's just to get the views, I suppose, probably Jill and maybe me yourself as well in the wider team. At 2.5, the recommendation is we've been asked to agree to see this now. So it would be, we won't see it every time at our committees now. We'll see it just through the business plans and such like, and the performance reports that come in front of us. The childcare partnership, I felt, worked very well. Sometimes it was a wee bit awkward, but I think at the end of the day it did a really good job, and taking into consideration that we're still in COVID, it's still here with us for quite a wee while yet. So unless we've got alternative routes in which where all these different stakeholders involved here can make sure that their voice is being heard, they're being communicated, we can discuss whether it's about performance quality or even vaccination, whatever it may be, anything at all. Should we be rekindling the community, the childcare partnership, Chairman?
Gillian?
Thank you. I think it's always useful to have forums where we have providers together, and certainly the models, we took some advice from social work as to how they work with their providers. I think the difference with the childcare partnership being an outside body of the council or having a constitution was one that we did grapple with for a while, but certainly it would be useful to make sure we do have the voice of the sector, and I'm sure Rosie works closely with the sector. As you mentioned, Rosie, you have identified officers working with each partner, and you may already have formal and informal forum that you work with these partners on that you'd like to tell us about.
Rosie?
Yeah, okay, thank you, Gillian. Yes, we are, this term, we're just introducing again a regional forum so that all partners are invited to those meetings. They're for childminders particularly, and also for the private and voluntary sector. And what we have done is we've emailed them to ask them to contribute to the agenda for that. For example, the meeting that we've got coming up, we've got this week, we've got Care Inspectorate coming to talk to them, and so there's opportunities for them to raise any concerns that they have, and that we as officers can be in a supportive role, but also that our wider partners in terms of Care Inspectorate, Education Scotland, for example, can also input into those meetings. So I feel that we've broadened that out from the childcare partnership meetings, and they will cover all aspects of early learning and childcare, so that everybody who's delivering for us has an opportunity to raise any concerns or issues, and also so that we can share practice to drive quality forward.
Thanks for that update, Rosie and Julian. Thanks very much, Jeff, for allowing that to be answered. I feel quite comfortable with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Willie?
Yeah, Chair, and I would like to thank Rosie for the work that she put in just before August, or before the return of the school in one of the schools in Stranraer, which allowed for the increased number of parents who wish to register at the particular school. But I just wondered from Rosie if we still have a problem in Stranraer in terms of delivering the full 1140, notwithstanding that it talks here in 4.8 that we only need to deliver the 600, and it's no obligatory to do the 1140. But I just wondered if there is still an issue in Stranraer in terms of the location of the various schools, and I appreciate that the nurseries don't have a catchment area, but the parents still like to see their children go into the school where siblings may have gone in, or it's within walking distance and so forth. I still believe that we have an issue in Stranraer, but maybe Rosie could tell me differently.
Rosie?
Thank you for your question. We do have, across all of our clusters, our high school clusters, we have a sufficient capacity to deliver 1140, and we do have an allocation criteria that should be shared with parents when they come to enrol their children, and parents are asked to indicate their first, second and third choice of provider, and we have been able to accommodate people's requests, with the exception of a few families this year that we have found alternative provision. So we do have the capacity to deliver the 1140 within the Stranraer cluster.
Thanks, Rosie. I've got no one else indicating, no one to speak. I see from the papers we agreed this in March 2017. This has been a massive piece of work by officers on the council, and I think we do owe them a vote of thanks for actually getting the 1140 hours delivered on time as well, despite the best efforts of COVID. So I would just like to thank them for all their efforts. So can we move to the recommendations? Can we agree 2.1? Oh, sorry. Stephen?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, yes, it's certainly a significant piece of work. Maybe so good we need to agree it twice, seemingly. I think 2.1 and 2.5 affect this twice, but just in different words, because this is the full implementation of the strategic project that we're effectively agreeing that is complete. So at 2.1, I just wonder if we're not kind of doing the same thing the way that's been set out there, but just in a slightly different way. It's maybe my confused reading of it, but it does seem to actually do the same thing twice. I mean, we can agree at 2.1, then agree at 2.5 as well, if you like, but I just sort of wondered about that.
Julian?
Happy to make it as clear as possible, members. I suppose I was conscious that we had a previous agreement that we brought a paper to every education committee on this project, and I just wanted to be absolutely clear that we were doing what you expected of us, and if we were now able to complete this project in terms of reporting to committee, and we bring the performance as part of normal business. But if that bullet point could be moved up under 2.1, if that would read more consistently, we could look at that. Yep.
Okay with that, and obviously with the correction that And the last bullet point is paragraph 3.9 rather than 3.7. Okay, so can we note 2.2, note 2.3, agree 2.4, and 2.5 has been moved up. Okay. Right, so if we move on to item 6 on page 23, the Transformation Programme Update. The purpose of this report is to present members with an update on the progress of education and learning within the 2 themes of the Transformation Programme. The report provides elected members with an overview of the Works Programme for core education delivery and curriculum and school models undertaken prior to COVID closure, and provide a review by way of update following restart. And we have...
It's myself, Chair. It's me.
Oh, we have Gillian to speak to this. Is there anything you want to add, Gillian?
No, members. Thank you, Chair. COVID has allowed us to accelerate one of the transformation projects, but has required us to pause the other, and I hope that report tries to summarise the position that we're in at the moment.
Members? No. Okay, so if we can move to the recommendations. 2.1 and 2.2, rather than agreeing, I think we should be better placed to note rather than agree. Okay, so can we note 2.1 and 2.2? Can we agree 2.3 and 2.4? Thank you, members. Moving on to agenda item 7 on page 37. The Learning Estate Investment Programme Dumfries Learning Town Phase 2. This paper confirms that the submission of the DLT2 bid to Scottish Government on the 13th of October. The bid is to seek funding from the Learning Estate Investment Programme for a rebuild of Dumfries High School and refurbishment of Dumfries Academy, which will include a relocation of Lawburn Primary, the investment in Noble Hill Nursery, Calside Nursery and Lorinow Nursery, originally considered with the DLT2 project, have now been taken forward through early learning and childcare in our report to this committee in items 5 and 8. The DLT2 programme, should the Council be successful in securing national funding, will be taken forward through the Programme Management Office and through Hub South West. The PMO will take account of learning from the root cause analysis on the NWCC North West Community Campus undertaken for the Scottish Futures Trust and independent inquiry into the construction of the DG1 complex. And the paper asks members to consider the next steps in appointment in a senior responsible officer. And we have Lauren Foss to speak to this. Lauren, is there anything you want to add to your report?
Thanks, Chair. I think the only thing that I would add at this stage is that our anticipation is that we should have confirmation if the bid's been successful in full or in part by the end of December, early January next year. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Lauren. Members? David?
I suppose the first question to Lauren is, does he dream a lot? Will you have any input into the choice of contractor? Given what we've gone through with Dalbeattie, North West Community Campus, DG1 and whatever else you want to name, will we have any input into the choice there? Or will we have any, be able to can oversee the work as it's being done?
Lauren?
Yes. I think the key thing is the shared learning and the lessons learned from all of these instances have filtered up through ourselves as Dumfries and Galloway Council, through Hub South West and through the Scottish Futures Trust. So every concern that we're discussing here today are ones that are shared right up to a national level. We are able to provide our views and our belief on the Tier 1 contractors within the Hub South West contracting arm. However, we're not in a position to select in that process. That said, our views have been taken on board, and whilst we're not at that stage at this point, I believe that we will not be in the same position that we have been historically. To build on the cause-effect analysis for North West specifically, and when we look within the steps that have been put in place, they actually mirror the output of that key piece of work that took place. So all the steps and the recommendations from that document are things that we've now built into the bid moving forward, and we'll be in a different position where we've got, through our own internal council resources, the ability to scrutinise the quality aspect of the construction design and of the construction delivery from day one right through to completion, probably to a higher degree of scrutiny that was there before. As we know, the project management office has been constructed around that cause analysis report, specifically to pick up on these items, not just for this project moving forward, but actually for all projects delivered through the council. So hopefully that should give us the reassurance that we won't be in the same position again.
That's good. Thanks very much.
Doug Fairbairn.
Good afternoon, Lauren. Can you hear me?
Can hear you, Douglas, yep.
Aye, that's great. Simple really, Lauren, it's, you know how we like to get caught out contingency-wise in this local authority. So I just wondered, 3.6, I know it's a bit of a wide question really, but I don't know if you could answer it in relation to contingency.
Absolutely, it's a statement in there that we know as a council that we have given commitment to Lorburn and to the high school through the bid going forward. We know that there are condition issues with both buildings. They're both condition C, and should the bid be unsuccessful, we need to have something in place that we can do to address these. Now, it might be that options appraisal changes the output of what the bid looks to deliver, or it might be that we're able to look at the affordability envelope within the council's own funding mechanism, and that's the sort of contingency level that we were looking at. I think that there are options moving forward with these. There is obviously the schools asset class funding availability that we can use to invest in schools and keep them in a good condition, to keep them suitable and to keep the staff and pupils safe in those establishments. There are also the strategic projects which this sits as part of. I think in the short term, obviously, we will continue to monitor the condition of these facilities to ensure that staff and pupils are safe every day that they're inside these spaces. I think it's a difficult one knowing what the outcome of the bid will be. However, we as a council need to be in a position where we can move forward should it be unsuccessful.
Thanks, Darren.
Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, and I think we need to remember or bear in mind that in this particular round of funding, the council is responsible for borrowing the full amount up front. So we need to borrow the full amount of the cost, and then the Scottish Government will then repay us their share over the next 25 years in terms of maintenance of the building. So it is a different funding structure. Stephen?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it's actually just on the Programme Management Office as set out on page 56 and then 57. Obviously, that's in place. That's been a sort of a restructuring of how we go about managing projects and programmes, etc. But I was just sort of wondering, because we'll come to this in the recommendations at 2.2, but it was maybe just the way it's been worded. I wasn't sure if actually what we're being asked to do when considering this report is to basically agree to receive reports, which is fine, but it does sort of suggest that we might be then being asked to agree the Programme Management Office arrangements and the proposed government. So I don't know if we're going to get a governance document back here to agree, or given that the Programme Management Office is in place, that they already have governance arrangements that we would expect them to report on rather than us having to re-agree them. So I'm just, again, it's maybe a wee bit of ambiguity on my part, perhaps.
Gillian?
Thank you. I'm happy to take that. And again, apologies if it's not clear. It was my intention with this was to to submit the bid, and then, as Lauren highlighted, to prepare our council in readiness for what may come. So we're asking members to agree to receive a further report, which will then detail the senior responsible officer and the governance arrangements within the broad framework of the Programme Management Office. A previous paper back prior to COVID had highlighted we would bring these arrangements to you as a further paper. I recognise that they're not here today, but I commit to making sure that they're with members at the next opportunity.
Dick?
Thanks, Chair. I'm quite happy with these recommendations. Phase 2 of the London Town will complete the modernisation of education in Dumfries and take it to the next level. We've spent a lot of time over the last large number of years discussing education in Dumfries and modernising it. So perhaps we could have a paper at some date on how we're doing the rest of the region, what innovative ideas are there to modernise education and provide a great education going into the next decade. So perhaps something what's going on in the rest of the region to keep us all involved and is all content that we're doing our best for the children.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Absolutely delighted to do that. And I think the previous paper that we referred to on the transformation news, the core education delivery and curriculum and the agreements, particularly at the moment with our secondary head teachers across the region, I talked about accelerating some of the work we've done with digital over the last few months. We've had to, and we've shown that we can change the way we deliver, and I think that will allow a greater equity to access for courses for pupils across the region, and I'd be delighted to bring another paper back to discuss that with members.
Thanks, Julian. I don't have anybody else indicating they want to speak, so once again, this has been a long journey. I see we agreed this in 2013, so it's sort of a historical group of papers now. So can we move to the recommendations? Can we note 2.1? Can we agree 2.2 and 2.3 and agree 2.4?
Do we have to put a 2.5 for the report on education across the region?
Yeah, I suppose we could add that, yeah. Okay, members, so moving on to agenda item 8, which is on page 69, Property, Building and Schools Asset Class Update. This report provides members an update on the capital spend position to the end of September 2020 across the school's asset class and 1,140 hours capital funding. Previously, members were informed of the impact of COVID-19 had made onto the spend profile. This has been further reviewed with the additional underspend highlighted within the body of the report. Members are also asked to consider the reasons behind additional expenditure at Castle Douglas High School and agree to the increased funding. And once again, we have Lauren Foss to speak to this. Lauren, is there anything you want to add?
Thanks, Chair. I think the only thing that I would add is a level of reassurance to members that whilst we are seeing quite a high level of undercommitment due to various reasons, we are quite confident that we can look at full expenditure of the full asset class value across next financial year.
Thanks, Lauren. So members want to speak. I've got John Young, followed by Stephen Thompson. John?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for this report coming forward. I'm aware that the major building alterations at Castle Douglas High School was way behind schedule even before the present crisis. So I suppose, well, it's not I suppose, I would really like to pay tribute to the staff and students in Castle Douglas High School for putting up with this disruption over such a length of time. Could I have a brief update on it with perhaps a completion date? And finally, can I draw attention to the work needing done in another Stewartry school? Kirkcudbright Academy really needs attention. Thank you very much.
Lauren?
Absolutely, and I agree completely. Castle Douglas has been quite a challenging project from conception all the way through to the stage that they're at just now. We're currently through the first phase of the construction work, which is about to be handed back to the school, and we transfer across to phase 2. That should happen within the next couple of weeks. So if you're familiar with the building, on the first floor, the right-hand side corridor has been completely refurbished from the staff room right through to the classrooms and the office spaces. That will now revert back to the school for their utilisation, and will take the other half of the corridor moving forward. The overall project is due for completion at the change of financial year. However, members will be aware that this is the first of many phases for Castle Douglas High School. We had hoped to be able to do both levels of the main building, but we'll need to revert back to a further phase to address the top floor of the main building. The Rosler building to the left and the rear of the school itself, it's well under progress with the refurbishment works in there. The windows, the M&E, the lighting, majority of that has been concluded, and that will be finished by the end of this financial year as well. In terms of Kukubri Academy, it's absolutely a school that we're aware of that requires a significant level of investment to bring it in line with other secondary schools. I think Councillor Brodie mentioned investment and improvements across our school estate earlier on, and I think if we're looking at priority order beyond the strategic projects that we have to finish off, I think Kukubri is realistically our next port of call in terms of secondary provision, and that's something that we'll work closely with the school community around shaping where that investment goes.
John, do you want back in?
Briefly, just to thank him for that very encouraging report. And yes, I am familiar with the Castle Douglas building. I taught in that school for over 20 years, so I'm very familiar with it, and I knew it was needing upgraded even before I left teaching. Thank you very much.
Stephen?
Thanks again, Chair. Yeah, it's just in section 3.3 on page 70, and obviously this is to do with the low levels of expenditure up to now. I'm just wondering, and it was touched on with the early learning and childcare, where we acknowledged that the completion of some of the actual capital works was going to be sort of set aside separately from the completion of the project in itself. But it was acknowledged that I suppose the impact of the pandemic has been also on the supply chain. So even if we do actually get works out for tendering on the open market, there's still that contingency, I suppose, that has to be recognised that with the best will in the world, we might not have the materials to, or the contractors might not have the materials to complete the work, and therefore we might not be able to spend the money as quickly as we'd like, not for want of trying. So I'm just sort of wondering, has that been factored in, or is there a margin allowing for that with the best of the knowledge we have at the moment?
Larry?
It's an absolutely valid point, and it is something that we've wrestled with extensively to try and devise what the best contingency planning is within there. I think when we were looking at the pandemic being at full lockdown, at that stage we were adding on around 30% in terms of time and deliverability. Obviously that's now in a different position, but we're still reliant on exactly that: workforce, materials, the supply chain being able to deliver to Dumfries and Galloway. Whether we're level 2 and they're level 3 brings other added complexities into that. I think what we have is the most accurate projections that we have at this point, but it's something that if we see a further movement within, we'll bring that detail back to committee, and we'll revise the over or under commitment levels within that. It's very challenging to manage our way through this at this stage because there's so many unknowns in it, unfortunately. But any changes we will certainly bring back to committee.
Thanks, Lauren. Davey?
Cheers, Chair. Lauren, I know it's not in the budget for 2021, but you'll know the problem at Trequeer with the mugger. I think it's been brought to your attention. Is there anywhere in the near future there could be any repair work done to that? Because I know at present with the weather it's been there, the kids can't get on it when the weather's wet, and it's a health and safety issue. I think it has been brought to your attention.
Absolutely, and agree. We've been out to review the condition of the surface, and actually, on reflection, that's one of our 3 2A schools that were constructed in 2009. So the carpet on all of the muggers across those 3 schools is 10 years old, 11 years old, and they're now at an age that carpet needs to be replaced. So whilst it's not detailed within the programme as such, it will sit within the health and safety contingency projects. So we've asked our colleagues to look at a replacement programme for the 3 schools and to bring that forward within existing budgets as quickly as possible. I haven't got any confirmed timescales on that. I would hope we're able to get a few other of the projects out of the way just now to build a little bit of resource availability. But when that's available, it's something that we'll move forward as swiftly with as we can.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. Nobody else has indicated to speak, so can we move to the recommendations? Can we note 2.1, note 2.2, and agree to the additional costs for works at Castle Douglas High School outlined in 3.6, that's 2.3. Okay, thank you, members. Moving on to item 9 on page 77, investment in schools, virtual desktop technology. Following the agreement in principle with full council on 24th September 2020 and the release of the first phase of funding at Finance, Procurement and Transformation Committee on 6th of October 2020. This report sets out the background to this project. This report notes the early progress, asks that Education and Learning Committee agree to be provided with updates on this project as a standing agenda item until fully delivered, and seeks agreement on member seminar to allow for some more detail and demonstrations of the virtual desktop solution and the opportunities it will bring. And we have Susan Martin and Graham McAlorum to speak to this. Is there anything you want to add? Susan?
Thank you, Chair. If I could please provide a bit of an update to members since Finance and Procurement and Transformation Committee on the 6th of October, we have progressed the 2 areas that the funding was released early for, so the bandwidth upgrade and the Wi-Fi in primary schools infrastructure upgrade ready for the next steps. So in terms of the bandwidth upgrade, that has been kicked off. The order has been placed. We're currently awaiting a programme of works from Capita, who are the providers. And once we have those, we are already in liaison with colleagues in BTS and Graham's team and also the Clerks of Works in order to make sure that we can progress this as timely as possible within the schools and get the necessary works done. So that will be from OpenReach, from the route planning into the internal works and bringing the fibre into the buildings, where to knock holes, where not to knock holes, where to run cables, etc., and then to arrange for Capita to attend to do the final fit test and transition, complete with a speed test on that final day. And from that point, they are then live. So we have a clear programme of what we want to do. We're just waiting on the running order coming back from Capita, and I can share that in a future update at this committee. And in terms of the primary Wi-Fi upgrades, our own team of technicians have carried out surveys over the October holiday weeks in order to check where the black spots were in each of the primary schools and to determine the number of access points that we needed to order. In the report, it does state that we would order 100 initially, and that was the initial plan when I wrote the report. However, these are expensive pieces of kit, so we decided not to order until we knew exactly what we were needing. And I'm glad that's been the case, because the number is actually less than 100, so it's not something that we would want to hold in stock. So I'm glad we've taken that view. The list of schools and sites and the positions of the access points will then be shared with the facilities team for installation, and they assure us they'll be able to carry that out before the end of April. So again, more detail on that will come back to future committee, but that's a bit of an update since writing the paper.
Thanks, Susan. Good to see there's progress being made already. Stephen?
Thank you, Chair. It was actually on that very point, Susan, so I'm very, very pleased that you've actually preempted my question, because it was really just that paragraph 3.9 So I'm actually very much reassured that we've actually waited for the evidence to be there, and then we've gone and ordered what we need, because clearly that seems like the proper way to go about doing business, especially for something as urgent and significant as this. So I'll welcome the update and also the site specific, so we know that within each of our wards we'll know which schools are getting what attention and when, because obviously it will have a big impact on the learning for pupils at school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't have anyone else wanting to speak. Yeah, I agree with Stephen. This is a very urgent project, and given the COVID problems, it is something which you need to get pushed through as quickly as possible. And if anything positive's come out of the COVID, it is this increased use of online learning, etc. Okay, so can we move to the recommendations? Can we note 2.1? Can we approve 2.2? And can we agree 2.3? Thank you. So item 10 on page 81. This is the Education and Learning Revenue Budget Monitoring Report 2020-2021 for the period ended 30th of September 2020. The report provides members with an overview of the key budget monitoring issues and the projected performance against budget for the current financial year for education and learning services based on the position as at 30th of September. Contained within the report are details on the additional costs that are projected to be incurred due to COVID-19 in relation to the initial emergency response and the education restart and recovery costs, which are currently estimated at just over £1 million and 2.2 million respectively, with both of these figures having been already reported to full council. Based on the position as at the end of September 2020, education and learning services are projected to break even. It should be noted that there is one area of pressure that management team are continuing to review to ensure that the service continue to manage their resource to return its anticipated position. It is anticipated that all savings against the education and learning budget will be delivered in full on an ongoing basis. The identified temporary shortfall is being managed by the service through compensating one-off reductions in spending within the same area where the savings have been applied, and it is currently anticipated that both allocations will be fully utilised from the policy development in the current financial year on the delivery of the agreed policy initiatives as planned. And we have Colin Pentland to speak to the report. Colin, is there anything you want to add?
No, Chair, nothing I'd like to add. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Members? No. No. Okay, in that case, can we move to the recommendations? Can we note 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 and 2.4? Okay, thanks, Colin.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, item 11 is on page 91. And this is the South West Education Improvement Collaborative Phase 2 Improvement Plan. It's an update. This report presents to members the updated South West Education Improvement Collaborative Recover, Reconnect, Renewal Plan as of September 2020. The updated plan and accompanying report reflects the significant work which has gone into progressing the main work streams and the further collaboration across the 4 local authorities, which are ourselves, East Ayrshire, North Ayrshire and South Ayrshire, since the initial publication of the plan in January 2018. Recognising, however, the significant impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on schools and their communities, it would not be possible to deliver the SUIAC Regional Improvement Collaborative Plan exactly as intended in the academic year 2021. The delivery plan has therefore been amended to include a focus on recovery, reconnection and renewal. This will help facilitate collaboration by using digital technologies, allowing colleagues to continue to engage with each other, with the focus remaining on the Regional Improvement Collaborative's key objectives, while at the same time providing support at this time of great uncertainty. And we have Sheila Rush meeting to speak to it. Sheila, is there anything you want to add to the plan, to the report? Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Nothing further to add. I think apart from just highlighting that we're now 2 years on, and I think we're really benefiting and enjoying the opportunity to collaborate right across the Ayrshires on a whole lot of different projects. But I think what has been particularly a strength of our collaborative work has been the support we've been able to provide each other with since March. So I think that would be what I'd like to highlight just at this point.
Sorry, thanks, Sheila. Members? Can I just say that Ros and I, the Vice Chair, have just come off an online meeting of the chairs of the local authorities involved with the South West Collaborative. I think it was generally agreed that it has made good progress in the year since it was set up, and we'd like to see it continue, but obviously that's contingent on government funding in the future. I mean, I think there was a suspicion that this was being set up to take control of education out of the local authority hands, and I don't think it's done that at all. I think what it's done is encouraged local authorities to work more closely together and build on their strengths. So yeah, I think it's done a good job. Okay. Ros, you wanted to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I just wanted to echo some of what you've said, and I'd like to support the work that this group has done, and it has been an amazing success, I think, and to look at the reports that we're getting through and the way that collaboration actually strengthens the work that we're doing in Dumfries and Galloway is fantastic. So yes, keep going. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ros. I've got no one else indicating, so can we move to the recommendations? Can we note 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3? Okay, thank you. So moving on to item 12 on page 123. This is the Bridge Educational Trust. This paper sets out a proposed future operating arrangement for the bridge. There was agreement in November 2018 that the Council would run the building until the Trust was established. Given the pressures and context, the trustees asked officers to establish the scope for the Council to retain responsibility of the facility, and that legal advice sought over the Council operating the asset on a permanent basis. The legal advice we have received allows for the provision of a facility for the provision of primary, secondary, tertiary and adult education and vocational learning and training. These purposes remain the objectives of the work which takes place within the bridge. As such, it has been clarified that the building can be run by the Council, and while there is still work to do establishing the details such as catering, partnership arrangements, staffing and letting arrangements, these can be taken forward once members have considered the views of the trustees, that the Council be asked to operate the building on a permanent basis with the purposes set out on the interlocutor. And we have Robin Fletcher available to answer any questions on the legal position, and Susan Martin to answer points on the operational arrangements for the building for the coming season. Robin and Susan, is there anything you want to add to the report?
Thanks, Chair. Nothing unless there's any specific questions. Happy to explain anything members want further amplified.
Susan?
And similarly, Chair, nothing to add unless there are any specific questions. I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Members, is there any questions? Dick?
Thanks, Chair. The governance of the bridge, it's a fantastic facility, but the governance has been muddled and confused, and I think the last time we discussed this as a committee, a lot of us were left scratching our heads. So, and this time I would just like to question the accuracy of the fact that there has been regular meetings of the subcommittee. I'm a member of that committee. I can only remember being invited to one meeting. I don't know if there's been any meetings in the last 6 months or year. So I'd question that. We haven't really had an opportunity to discuss whether it's a good idea to remain a charitable body or go to a charitable body or remain within the council. So I think the report needs more information. It does say that the legal opinions there, which says we can run it as an authority, and also we can run it as we can hand it over to a trust if we want. But it doesn't give you any details of the advantages and disadvantages of each option. So when it goes to the Standing Order Subcommittee, I would suggest that a fuller report is available to the members of that subcommittee to make an informed decision.
Julian.
Thank you. If I could clarify and then hand over to Roger for a legal view in terms of the comment on 3.4, the Trust, as in terms of the Board of Trustees, has met regularly, and it is the Ad Hoc Subcommittee. I absolutely accept that the Ad Hoc Subcommittee has not met, but the trustees that were appointed by committee have met on a regular basis, and it was during those meetings that the decision was taken, as I understand, that a paper be brought back here to ask members and to ask legal their view on the council operating the asset. So just to clarify, the Trust has met regularly, but I accept the Ad Hoc Subcommittee has not.
Can I just add that I actually chair the Trust, and yeah, we have met, but it's been incredibly difficult because what we have is an interim trust which doesn't have any people working for it, which doesn't have any money. So actually to set itself up as a body which could run something like the bridge, it's just proven to be an impossible task. And I think the limitations which have been put on as a result of the COVID means that basically I don't think it's going to make any progress anytime soon. So the simplest thing was just to get legal opinion on whether we do actually need a trust to run that building, the bridge building itself. And the advice which we've gotten, including from outside experts, is that we don't, as long as we actually use it for the purpose which it was intended, which is the intention of the council. It'll remain in the management of the council. Robin, is there anything you want to add to?
Not too much, just really to say that the possible legal directions are there that we can go in, and a lot of work has gone on to work out the best ways forward, and a lot of discussions within the Trust. And you say that there are practical, financial and other reasons that make the course of the council continuing to control the facility going forward as potentially a preferable one for the council. But in terms of legal avenues, those have all been thoroughly explored, and those options are possible, and we have done a lot of work to advance those options as possibilities.
Thanks, Robin. Dick?
Yeah, when we come to the recommendation, I suggest that we add just a bit that a full report go to the Ad Hoc Subcommittee, so can you've covered some of the points in what you said, but I think we need a
I'm sure that was the intention. The full report will go to the ad hoc, justifying the need for that decision. Okay.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, within our scheme, it does give strategic committees the right to establish single issue ad hoc subcommittees, which is what happened when this subcommittee was created. It was a decision that SIPL committee at the time took, so it would be for this committee to agree if that is no longer required. And then just to tie up any loose ends, we would recommend that the Trust then get notified of the decision of this committee, that they've agreed to recommend to the standing orders that there's no trust required, and then the report will then go to the review of standing orders to update our scheme, just to close everything off and tie it all together.
Yeah, and can I just add that all the members of the Trust, all the trustees are in agreement with this is the best way forward for the bridge itself. Okay. I've got no one else indicating they want to speak, so can we move to the recommendations? Can we agree that the bridge is operated as a council asset? 2.1 and 2.2 to request an amendment to the scheme of administration delegations to the review of standing orders subcommittee at the next opportunity. There is no longer the requirement for an ad hoc bridge educational trust subcommittee as set out in paragraphs 3.8. Okay. Thank you, members. I've got no further urgent items of business, so thank you for your attendance, and we'll see you again fairly soon. Okay, bye for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair.